Hey everyone, thanks so much for joining this yoga practice to celebrate Yule or the Winter Solstice. Yule is the shortest day of the year or the longest night, and although this can be a time where we are prone to lethargy or depleted physical energy, it can be a time of deep spiritual growth, a beautiful time to practice in meditation or reflection. Today's yoga practice will reflect this with slower, longer held restorative postures to embody the nourishing qualities for this time of year. We will also include postures that aid in digestion in preparation for the winter festivities. If you have props, bring along a bolster, or you could use a rolled up blanket, a couple of blocks, and maybe a spare blanket or a cozy jumper to use during your practice. If you want to bring along any crystals, amethyst, clear quartz, or hematite are good for this, and some essential oils could include cinnamon, clove, or frankincense. When you're ready, let's begin. Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining for this Winter Solstice or Yule yoga practice. This is going to be just a little bit of respite. I know that this is a time of year that is often chaotic for so many people. It can feel like you're being spread so thin that everyone wants a piece of you, and that your to-do list, your expectations have created a whole layer over your life, which means that you cannot take even just a moment for stillness. And this is going to be your opportunity to reconnect to the true intention of this time of year, which is the spiritual growth and the opportunity to take introspection and reflection. So even if you only take these 20 or so minutes for yourself, please make sure that you do prioritize your well-being during this time. And if possible, leading off with a nice reflection and a journaling practice as to how you can continue to feel this benefit of the winter time during the chaos of the festive time. So we're just going to take a few moments just to connect to our breath. You can sit up on a block if you have one, or sit with your bolster between your thighs. And we're just going to take a few moments to set the intentions. So just let go of the control of your breath. Just notice the natural pattern of your breathing. If you're working with congestion, you may even notice that there's quite a lot of resistance to your breath. You may notice your breath is quite shallow, or it may be relatively deep into your belly. There's no right or wrong way to breathe. We just notice how we've shown up today. And then I want you to notice how you're feeling energetically today, whether you are feeling pretty motivated, excited, maybe even a little bit frustrated or anxious. Or towards the other end of the spectrum, maybe you're feeling relaxed, grounded, or even a bit lethargic. Again, there's no right or wrong way to feel. Just notice how you've shown up today. And then we notice the moment of stillness between the thoughts, between the stories. We notice behind the layer, the filter of the emotions. We move into the role of the observer, the seer. And sometimes around this time, it can feel like every single one of our senses is being pulled to be switched on. We have to listen to others. We have to make room and space for their requirements in our lives. And they pull us into different parts of ourselves, to the point where there's this complete overwhelm of stimulation that we can't really find the space between the thoughts. There's not really a moment in which we can do that. And I almost want you to imagine all of that expectation, all of that emotion, all of that anticipation into a cabin just in front of you, and just close the door. Close the door until you find that silence. This moment of stillness where you can be wholly and completely yourself. Not mum, not dad, not brother, not sister, not husband, not wife. No obligations, no expectations. You're just you. And when we first do this, it can feel a little bit isolating, a little bit scary. We can feel quite alone on the journey. But that's the beauty of spiritual practice. It's your own. And although it can be amazing fun to spend time with friends, with family, and it can be a delight for so many of our senses, we need to come back to ourselves, to that stillness. And in this stillness, you can imagine a warm blanket being wrapped around your shoulders, keeping you safe, protected from the harsher outdoor elements. This is your opportunity to find yourself in spiritual connection. And so you can keep this feeling of warmth, of introspection through your practice today, or you can set yourself an intention that better resonates with how you're feeling in this moment. But when you're ready, we're going to start our practice. So as we get into the poses, it may be a little bit of faffing about, but once we're in, we're going to be holding for a longer time. So do take the time to set up your foundations to the point where you feel comfortable. So for this first position, just bring yourself firstly into a tabletop. We're going to come into a child's pose. Now, you can always create almost like a little platform with your blocks to bring your bolster a little bit closer towards you, especially if you struggle getting your hips towards your heels. You could also place a cushion between your thigh and your shin bones. Once you feel good here, we're going to start to relax forward. And we're going to start by bringing the right ear down to the bolster. We'll switch halfway through. And just notice where you are with your arms, and the palms facing down for a more calming effect, or palms up for a slightly more uplifting effect. And sometimes this stillness that we feel can be a bit of a shock to the system. It can feel really uncomfortable, especially if you do have a lot of expectations around your day-to-day. It can feel almost like a waste of time. Just knowing that these feelings are normal. It's okay to feel a bit resistant to the practice, but you notice that inner dialogue, that voice in your head that says it's a waste of time. You listen to it, but then you let it wash over you. You remind yourself that this is necessary, this is a part of the practice that we cultivate during the winter season. And then we bring ourselves back to the stillness between the thoughts. And then very mindfully we're going to switch sides, so the opposite ear is to the bolster. And then very gently bring your forehead back to the bolster. And we're going to release through a tabletop. So just bring your hands alongside the bolster, shoulders over wrists, and just take a little stretch of your ankles, pressing one back at a time. And now for this next position, you're going to keep your bolster, your props in exactly the same position. You may want to lower it down a touch. And you're going to, from your tabletop, walk your knees over to the left side of your yoga mat. Place your hips down so that the pelvis is flat to the short edge, the circular edge of your bolster. Now, if you have any lower back pain, you're going to come down side on to bring your right ribs down onto your bolster. If you have healthy neck and spine today, you're going to actually turn and square your rib cage over to the bolster. And then you have an option to bring your right ear down to the bolster or your left ear down to the bolster. And then you just want to get comfortable with your hands resting however they need to. Whichever variation of the pose you're in though, you want to make sure you feel supported, so do adjust as much as you need to. If you have a blanket, feel free to drape it over the top of yourself. Take your last few deep breaths here. And then once you've finished your exhalation, very gently and with control, just start by bringing your head back through center. Bring some weight into your forearms. And then very mindfully walk your hands back so you can lift your chest up, your head up. And just bring yourself to an upright position through the spine. And then from this position, just lift up onto your knees, walk your knees back through center. And in between sides, it might feel nice to inhale into cow pose. Exhale into cat. Maybe doing that a couple of times. And then when you're ready, bring yourself back to a neutral position. Walk your knees over to the left. Lower your hips to the short edge of your bolster. And again, you can come down side on, bringing your left ribs down onto the bolster, or rotate, bringing your collarbone forwards, belly towards the bolster, and then eventually even your right ear to the bolster. The palms face down for a more calming effect. Palms face up for a slightly more uplifting effect. And you may notice as you rest here, as you breathe here, that you get some resistance through your breathing. It becomes a challenge to breathe so deeply as you open all of those delicate tissues surrounding your heart, your lungs. As best we can, we remain calm and breathe as fully as possible. Taking your last few deep breaths on this side. And when you're ready, just bringing your elbows in, pushing enough through your forearms that you can bring your head back to neutral. Walk your hands back enough that you can walk your chest up. Lift your hips and walk your knees back through center. Once again, you can inhale into cow pose. And exhale into cat. Maybe once more. Inhale back to a neutral spine, and we're going to come into a supported bound angle position. So you're going to place your first block on the sort of lowest setting, so the flat setting, and your second block on the second highest setting. From there, you're going to place your bolster along the length of those blocks, and this is going to create a support for you. If you don't have a bolster, what you can do is place the first block on the lengthways setting. That can go between your shoulder blades, and the second block can support your head. Okay, otherwise we're creating this little staircase of shelf for the bolster, and this depends. If your bolster is quite big, it's going to be a bit more supportive. If not, you have to be a bit more delicate. And we're going to come to lay down on our backs. So you want your sacrum as close towards the edge of the bolster as possible. As I mentioned, if you're coming into the fish pose, you can place the first block in between your shoulders, and then either to the bolster or to the second block, release your head down. And you have the option to bend your knees, let the soles of the feet press together as the knees fall to the side. Relax your arms alongside your body with the palms of the hands facing open as you let your shoulder heads melt down towards the floor. It's really important that you want to feel supported through the neck, through the head in this one. And you really want to be able to let go. So if that means straightening your legs, feel free to do that. If it means wrapping a blanket over yourself, please do that. Feel warm, feel supported, and feel safe in this pose. Often during the winter season, we end up sitting more, rounding more, hunching over our desks, driving in cars, and we create this closure around the chest, physically, but also emotionally. Oftentimes we create this kind of shell around our hearts. We don't listen intuitively to our desires and our goals, our intentions, and we close off from the world. And so now, although it might feel a little bit uncomfortable as you open up your heart and feel that resistance beginning to ebb away, just knowing that each time we open our heart, we crack open that shell just a little bit more, creating more room for love, for gratitude for ourselves, which ultimately is what the winter season is all about. Taking time away from the world into the darkness, taking self-study, svadhyaya, connection to your spiritual side, but also a chance to connect deeper with your intentions, your goals, becoming familiar with who you are. And it can be a strange sensation, just like the leaves on the trees shed through the autumn and winter, and the trees can be left bare. We too can lose elements of our personality, our egos, as we shed the parts of ourselves that we built in the spring and the summer. And it can leave us feeling empty or lost. This is where the most beautiful transformation happens. Because like the trees conserving their energy, building strong roots in preparation for the new year ahead, so too do we get a deeper, stronger connection with who we are, who we want to be, our sense of self, as we reflect in the darker season. And although we won't grow much during the winter, we're creating strong roots and familiarizing ourselves with who we want to be. Just taking your last few breaths here. And when you're ready, just gently pressing through your forearms, just enough that you can lift your head up. Walk your hands in, draw your knees in. It might even feel nice just to gently rock them from side to side. And then when you're ready, you're going to come into your Shavasana, or if you'd prefer a meditation, now is the good time to prepare for that. I always recommend, it's really nice to place the bolster between the backs of the knees. You can just release your blocks off to the side, or you can sit up on your block. And just come to lay down on your back. Again, if you have a blanket, maybe draping that over yourself. Cultivating that warmth, that nourishing energy that so often we don't pay enough attention to in the winter. It can feel like something we're rushing through in order to get back to the spring, back to the new year. Or we spend all of our energy on our loved ones, on those around us. Instead, close the door, even just for a moment. Embrace that stillness, that cold. And then remind yourself that this is a chance for you to connect deeper to yourself, to your spirit. And so instead of pouring yourself out to others, perhaps we take time to pour into ourselves, to nourish ourselves, to warm our hearts in preparation, creating strong roots for the spring season. Please enjoy resting in your Shavasana for as long as you need. As always, it might feel nice to finish this with a reflection, some journaling as to how you can continue to nourish yourself through the winter. Thank you all so much for joining. I hope you have a wonderful Yule, a wonderful winter solstice. As you go forward, wishing you peace in your thoughts, your words, your heart. Namaste.